Hello and welcome back to the Eagle-Gryphon Games vlog, and this week we'll be interviewing Josh Raab, who designed the abstract game Nika that you'll hear a little more about later in this vlog. Then we'll give you a sneak peek at the upcoming Railways of the World expansion, Rail Barons of the World, that unlocks solo play. Next, we'll highlight a new release of a mini expansion, the Queen variant, for Vital Lacerda's Lisboa. In the Eggs from the Vault segment, we'll give you a quick overview of that abstract game Nika that coincides with today's designer interview, and we'll finish it off with a game giveaway. But first, let's update you on some Kickstarters that are coming soon. Railways of Sweden, Railways of Australia, and Rail Barons of the World, 3 new expansion for Railways of the World series will launch on Kickstarter May 13th and will run until May 28th. These 3 expansions cover a map of Sweden with heavy mountainous terrain, a map of Australia designed to scale with player count, and a solo expansion for the Railways of the World series. A quick reminder that our Kickstarter campaign for On Mars Alien Invasion will launch on July 15th. Josh Raab is a digital and analog game designer. He's co-founded 3 indie game companies, Ancient Mariner Games, Studio Wumpus, and Studio Mercado. He has a wide range of work experience, from developing Flash games to consulting for a museum exhibit designer and the state of design from the NYU Game Center. And his board game Nika was published by Eagle-Gryphon Games in 2014, so welcome in Josh Raab.
My undergraduate degree was in history, specializing in ancient history. It applies to game design more than you might think. History is full of compelling themes and settings across different cultures and time periods. It's also a rich source of game mechanics because everyone, from farmers to merchants to kings, had to make strategic decisions about their lives. The other thing about studying history is that it teaches you to think in systems. If you want to understand historical processes, you need to understand how a change in one part of the system can affect the other parts, like how a drought in one country might lead to a revolution in another. Similarly, a game designer needs to understand things like how changing the cost of one early game action might affect the strategy in the late game. You need to draw connections between things that might not have obvious relationships. Nika was my first success as a game designer back in 2013. Since then, I've gotten an MFA in game design at NYU Game Center and worked for 2 strategy video game companies in Baltimore, Big Huge Games and Mohawk Games. My other independent work that I think Eagle-Gryphon fans might be especially interested in is Sumer, which is a real-time digital board game. Our goal was to build a video game around board game mechanics, and in this case, worker placement and auctions. It's available now on Steam and Nintendo Switch, so I recommend any video gamers viewing this go check it out. At its core, Nika is similar to classic abstract games like chess, where you capture an opponent's piece by moving your own piece onto it. What Nika adds is the idea of facing. When I point my piece in a direction, it becomes protected in that direction. Think of a soldier moving around with a big shield in front. So if my piece is facing yours, you can't capture it. The thing is, if you playtest that for about a minute, you quickly realize that it's very easy to completely block off a part of the board by building a line of pieces that are all facing the same way. That's why I added the pushing mechanic. If I have 2 pieces lined up against your one piece, I can push your piece backward, even though I can't capture it because it's facing me. Since I was in Greece studying ancient Greek history at the time, this lined up movement reminded me of the concept of phalanxes, which are typically rectangular formations of soldiers, all facing the same direction. Many historians believe that head-to-head battles between Greek heavy infantry called hoplites were actually decided by shoving matches, which had few casualties since they were so well protected from the front. So, with the phalanx movement and pushing mechanics in place, it made sense to theme the game around Greek warfare. The art for Nika was made by Chris Hernandez, who also worked with me and a few other guys on the free app version of the game. The piece on the box cover and in the center of the board was not just inspired by, but directly traced from, an ancient Greek vase. As for the color scheme, one team uses blue and white, which are associated with modern Greece, as you can see on its flag. The other team uses black and terracotta red, the colors that make up the most iconic styles of ancient Greek pottery. It's also worth bringing up the medical symbol used on the spaces where you revive your pieces. Modern medicine often uses the familiar caduceus, which is a staff with 2 snakes and wings, but that belongs to Hermes, the god of traders, travelers, and thieves. Instead, we used a staff with 1 snake and no wings, which is called the rod of Asclepius. He was the god of medicine, and ancient doctors would have used his symbol rather than the caduceus, which would have been more associated with commerce. This is a great question, and I could probably give a whole lecture about it, so I'll just focus on a few topics. The most important difference is that in a board game, the players are the CPU. That means humans are handling all the rules in their heads. So certain kinds of rules, like complex probability and geometry, are not practical, except for the most hardcore tabletop games. Video games can handle that sort of thing a lot more easily. They can also run algorithms in secret without the player knowing, which lets you create surprises. Because they can handle so many rules all running at the same time, the possibilities in video games are endless. On the other hand, let's say you're working on a game and you want to try out a change, and by the way, this iterative process is the core of all game design. If you're working on a video game, you've got to stop running the game, change the code or some other values, maybe ask an engineer to do it. If it's too hard to do yourself, restart the game, get back to the same game state, hope the new code isn't too buggy, and so on. There are a lot of steps, and it's slow and can be frustrating. But if you're making a board game, even right in the middle of a playtest, you can say, oh, let's try it this other way. Because the players are the CPU, they can just update the algorithm in their heads. In other words, the game instantly starts working the way you proposed just because everyone agrees that it does. If you want to change a value on a card, you can cross it out and pencil in a new one. So the barriers to iteration are a lot lower in board games, which in my opinion makes them a lot more fun to work on and really lets you focus on the design. Another difference is the amount of information that can be displayed at once. Video games are confined to a screen. It can only display so much information, and you don't even know exactly how big a given player's screen is going to be. In a board game, you can have a huge tableau in front of you with a ton of information displayed all at once. Having to pan the camera around or open up different menus is a chore, but looking at different parts of a game board is easy. In other words, the resolution in real life is a lot higher, so players can see more info at once. One last difference is that board game players are fine with sitting down and listening to rules for a while before they start playing. That's just an expected part of the board game experience. Video gamers, on the other hand, they want to start playing right away. So video game tutorials need to be more interactive, and the early part of a game needs to be more open to trial and error, as players make decisions without really understanding their consequences.
The upcoming Railways of the World expansion, Rail Barons of the World, unlocks solo play in Railways of the World, as David Turtsey and John Albertson have designed a solo system that works with many of the Railways of the World maps. Now, this expansion also includes a universal Rail Baron deck that can be played with any Railways of the World map in multiplayer as well. The Lisboa Queen variant replaces card number 57 when it appears in the game, providing a new twist when playing Lisboa. This variant evokes the relationship between Mariana Vittoria and the Marquis de Pombal. When the king can no longer reign, the queen becomes regent. Mariana Vittoria did not like the Marquis de Pombal because of the way he handled the Tavora affair, in which a noble and powerful family, friends of the queen, were accused of attempted regicide and then executed in public by the Marquis without a fair trial, solely to gain political power. In 1777, immediately after the king's death, she dismissed the Marquis by royal decree and exiled him to his hometown, Pombal. This mini expansion is available now from our website, so click the link below for more information. Nika is the ancient Greek word for conquer, and 2 to 4 players will command a Greek city's soldiers who must force their way through enemy lines. Athens and Messene are allies working together, either as a single player running both or 2 players as a partnership. Same for Sparta and Thebes, also allies working together as a single player or 2 as a partnership. You're trying to either have you or your ally get one of the troops into their victory area on the opposite side of the board in their ally's side. On your turn, you'll be taking 2 actions. A single troop can first rotate and then move, and if this enemy is not facing it, you can rout it, taking it off the board and placing it in that city's routed pieces, which they'll need to use and spend an action to get it out later in the game. And a single unit facing an enemy like this cannot push it. But you can create a phalanx of 2 or more adjacent pieces belonging to the same city, facing in the same direction. And now this has the power to push the enemy. And sometimes within a phalanx, only certain lines have enough strength to push a specific enemy, where these two are tied in strength. And if an enemy gets pushed off the board, it'll end out in their routed pieces section. And when moving a phalanx, you can rout enemies that are not facing you, and you can push enemies even into some of your allies, regardless of which way they're facing, to rout some of those enemies. With the result looking something like this. So on your 2 actions, you're moving, maybe rotating after your move, or rallying a previously routed piece onto the board. And the first player or team to get one of their troops into the victory spot on the opposite side of the board is the winner. Nika is available now, so click the link below to be brought to the product page. I just gave you a quick overview of Nika, and today you can win your very own copy. We're giving away 1 copy of Nika, and to enter, all you have to do is be a subscriber of our channel and then make a comment. Now if you aren't yet a subscriber, you can click to subscribe just below here. Now once a subscriber, for your comment for today's giveaway, let us know what your favorite digital implementation of a board game is. Now you have from 1 week from when this video was launched to enter, and I hope you enjoyed this week's Eagle-Gryphon Games vlog. Now you can click the playlist link below me to see all the past vlogs, and we'll see you next week.